Everyone wants wealth, but very few are willing to live the life that creates it. Desire is common, discipline is rare, dreams are easy, habits are hard, yet it is in the habits where destiny hides. You can dream of millions, but if your daily actions train you for pennies, you will always live like a beggar. Riches are not accidental, they are deliberate. Poverty is not fate, it is often a repeated practice. Wealth is not a gift given to the lucky, it is a responsibility given to the prepared. If you are not shaping your daily actions, then your daily actions are shaping you. And the mind, left undisciplined, will drift towards scarcity, not abundance. So if you want to train your life for riches, you must first train your mind for order, control, and vision. And let me tell you, if you cannot control $1, you will never control $1 million. And if you cannot master your daily habits, you will always be a slave to circumstances. Wealth doesn't escape those who chase it, it escapes those who are unprepared for it. Let me tell you something I learned early on in my own journey. Most people are in a hurry for results. They want wealth in weeks, success in months, and freedom by the end of the year. But life does not work like that. Real wealth, real success, the kind that lasts, it doesn't arrive in an instant. It's not a lottery ticket. It's not a miracle. It's a process. And processes require patience. The farmer doesn't plant a seed in the ground today and expect a tree tomorrow. He knows that nature works quietly, steadily, and predictably as long as the laws are respected. Wealth operates on the same law. If you learn to be patient with progress but ruthless with discipline, you will discover that extraordinary outcomes are built from very ordinary days. The temptation is to believe that talent is what separates the wealthy from the poor, the successful from the struggling. But I've met plenty of talented people who never made anything of themselves. Talent without consistency is wasted potential. What builds fortunes, what builds freedom, is discipline, repeated action, even when it doesn't feel exciting, even when no one is watching, even when the results don't show up immediately. That daily grind, those small, almost invisible choices, they compound over time. Consistency will always outperform talent because discipline multiplies itself, while talent alone often fades. I remember when I was struggling financially, working hard, but going nowhere. It wasn't that I lacked ability. I could work, I could speak, I could sell, but my results didn't change until my habits changed. I began to put systems into place. I started reading every day, even if it was just a few pages. I started saving consistently, even if the amount seemed too small to matter. I started exercising discipline over my time, avoiding hours wasted on empty activities. None of those things made me rich overnight, but day after day, week after week, the compound effect began to reveal itself. The bank account looked better, my confidence grew, and opportunities that once seemed invisible started appearing. That's why I tell people, never underestimate the power of small, steady steps. You might not notice them today, but the day will come when others will look at you and call it success. What they'll see is the harvest, but what they won't see are the countless seeds you planted in silence. They won't see the nights you chose to study instead of sleep. They won't see the weekends you worked while others played. They won't see the restraint you practiced when you could have indulged. They'll only see the results, and they'll call it extraordinary. But you'll know the truth, that extraordinary outcomes are nothing more than ordinary disciplines, repeated long enough. So be patient with your progress, but ruthless with your discipline, because it is not the speed that matters, it's the direction. And if you stay the course, the rewards will not only come, they will astonish you. One of the greatest turning points in my life came when I learned the difference between vague wishes and clear goals. Almost everyone wishes for success. Almost everyone would like to be wealthy, free, and influential, but wishes float around in the air with no anchor, and they disappear as quickly as they come. A goal, however, is something altogether different. A goal is a wish written down with numbers, dates, and a plan of action attached. The act of writing is not just formality. It is the bridge between thought and reality. When you put pen to paper, you are making a contract with yourself, a silent declaration that this is no longer just an idea, it is an assignment. I used to keep it all in my head. I thought if I dreamed hard enough and worked hard enough, life would sort it out. But life is too noisy for that. Too many distractions, too many urgencies that crowd out the important. Once I began writing my goals every morning and every evening, the noise quieted. There was direction. I wasn't drifting anymore. I was steering. When you write down, this year I will earn $50,000. By June I will have saved $5,000. By December I will have invested 10% into this account. Something inside you shifts. Your subconscious begins to treat those words like reality waiting to be delivered. I kept small notebooks, and in those pages I wrote specific targets. Not I want to be rich someday, but I will have accumulated $1 million in assets by this date. Not I want to save, but I will set aside $200 every week. At first, it seemed almost mechanical, but over time, repetition trained my mind to believe those targets were not just possible, they were inevitable. Each day, when I read and rewrote them, I was aligning my thoughts and actions toward that destination. Opportunities that once went unnoticed suddenly stood out because my mind had been trained to look for them. Clarity is powerful. Without it, you hesitate, you second guess, you drift. But when the target is sharp and precise, your daily decisions begin to fall in line with that target. You start to ask, will this purchase move me closer to my savings goal or further away? Will this use of my time help me hit my income milestone, or is it simply distraction? The clearer the blueprint, the easier it becomes to build. And there's something else. Writing goals in private carries its own magic. You don't need to announce them to the world. The world doesn't need your declaration. It needs your demonstration. Keep your goals to yourself. Let your habits reveal them, and let your results shock those who once doubted. So never underestimate the act of writing it down. It is not small, it is not trivial, it is the foundation. What you put on paper today quietly shapes the reality you will live tomorrow. When I was young and broke, I didn't realize that my bank account was simply a reflection of my thinking. I thought money was the problem, but the real problem was the way I thought about money, work, and opportunity. The truth is, you cannot build a wealthy life with a poor mindset. And the only way to change your mindset is to deliberately feed it with new ideas. Just as you would train your body at the gym, you must train your mind in the classroom of wealth. 30 minutes a day may not seem like much, but compounded over time, it becomes a complete transformation of how you think, how you see opportunities, and ultimately, how you live. I made it a discipline to read every single day. Not hours and hours, just consistent time. Half an hour in the morning or before bed, sometimes with a book in my hands, sometimes with an audio tape playing in the car. At first, I didn't notice much change. But after a while, my language began to shift. My decisions improved. And I started seeing patterns that had been invisible to me before. That's what wisdom does. It trains your eyes to see what others miss. Where most people see risk, wisdom shows you the opportunity. Where most people complain, wisdom shows you the seat of advantage. Think of it this way. If you neglect your body for a year, the results will show. If you feed it junk every day, it will weaken. The mind works the same. If you leave it unattended, it gets lazy. If you feed it gossip and noise, it becomes distracted and anxious. But if you give it a daily diet of strong ideas, timeless principles, and financial strategies, it becomes sharp, resilient, and directed toward success. Every book you read, every lecture you listen to, every mentor you study becomes like a brick in the structure of your future. I used to say that one idea can change your whole life. But here's the thing, you won't know which idea it will be until you go looking for it. It might be the 5th book you read this year, or the 20th speech you listened to this month. But one concept, one shift in perspective, can open doors you never knew existed. That's why the daily habit matters. It's not about the 30 minutes. It's about who you become after thousands of those 30-minute sessions accumulate. So train your mind deliberately. Don't leave it to chance. Don't wait for wisdom to stumble into your path. Seek it daily. Build the discipline of exposing yourself to the thoughts of those who have walked the road to wealth before you. Because if you learn to think like the wealthy, act like the wealthy, and see the world as the wealthy do, it's only a matter of time before you join them. When I first began my journey toward financial independence, I realized that ideas are like seeds. They are small, often invisible at first, but with the right attention, they grow into something magnificent. I didn't just want fleeting inspiration. I wanted a tool, a practice, a way to capture every lesson, every strategy, every observation that could move me forward. That's when I started keeping a daily journal. Not a diary of complaints or trivial events, but a precise record of ideas, reflections, and insights about money, business, and personal growth. Each morning or evening, I would take 15 minutes to write down what I had learned, what I noticed, and what I intended to apply. Sometimes it was a principle from a book, a quote that struck me, or a realization from a conversation. Sometimes it was a problem I needed to solve, and in writing it down, I clarified my thinking. There's a remarkable transformation that happens when you take an idea out of your mind and put it on paper. It stops being vague, it stops floating around aimlessly, and it becomes tangible. It becomes a plan, a strategy, a tool you can act upon. The daily habit of journaling also trained my mind to be alert. Suddenly, I began noticing opportunities I had overlooked before, patterns in the market, inefficiencies in my own work, chances to add value where others saw none. And more importantly, I could track my own growth. Looking back at my journals, I could see how far I had come, how small steps accumulated, and how certain ideas repeated themselves until I acted on them consistently. This gave me confidence and clarity. It gave me evidence that progress was not accidental but deliberate. I also learned that journaling builds discipline. It teaches patience and reflection in a world that prizes speed and distraction. Every line you write is a vote for focus, for conscious action, and for turning knowledge into wisdom. You begin to see that wealth isn't just about numbers. It's about insight, about thinking differently, and about acting deliberately. Each journal entry becomes a bridge between thought and action, between learning and earning. So, if you truly want to train your mind for riches, pick up a notebook. Make it a sacred space for your ideas, lessons, and reflections. Write daily, not sporadically, and treat it as a personal mentor that never sleeps. The wealth of your future begins with the attention you give to your thoughts today, and journaling is the compass that ensures those thoughts lead to action. Early in my career, I learned a lesson the hard way. Wealth is not just about what you earn, it's about how you manage your mind. I remember sitting at my kitchen table, staring at bills and investment statements, feeling a whirlwind of anxiety and excitement all at once. I wanted fast gains, I wanted security, and I wanted to avoid mistakes, but my emotions were running the show. I realized quickly that no matter how brilliant your plan or how large your opportunity, if your emotions control your decisions, you are likely to sabotage yourself. Greed tempts you to overreach. Fear paralyzes you from action. Impatience pushes you into unwise choices. Wealth is never built in a frenzy. It's built in calm, rational, disciplined action. Each day, I trained myself to pause before making financial decisions. I would ask, am I acting from principle or from impulse? If it was impulse, I would step back. I learned to separate my emotions from the numbers on paper, from the trends in the market, and from the pressures of peers and society. It wasn't easy at first. The mind craves instant gratification, but over time, the practice became a habit. I started seeing opportunities more clearly because I was no longer clouded by desire or fear. I could assess risk with precision, invest with confidence, and spend with intention. Discipline in money matters also means developing patience. I learned to value long-term growth over short-term excitement. Compounding wealth is not flashy. It's quiet, incremental, and consistent. Impulsive decisions might give a thrill today, but the results are fleeting. True financial success comes from cultivating a mindset that values steady progress, not emotional highs and lows. I also realize the importance of detachment. Money is a tool, not a master, and treating it with respect rather than attachment keeps the mind clear. By disciplining my emotions daily, whether in spending, saving, or investing, I created a space where rational thought could thrive. I could see patterns, identify opportunities, and take deliberate actions that compounded over time. So, if you want to build lasting wealth, begin by mastering your inner world. Every day, train yourself to act on principles, not impulses. Calm, rational, disciplined decisions will grow quietly at first, but in time, they will create fortunes far beyond what fear, greed, or impatience could ever produce. I remember the first time I truly grasped the power of opportunity cost. I was young, struggling to pay off debts, and every dollar seemed to vanish as quickly as it arrived. One evening, I found myself in a small cafe, staring at a tempting purchase, a fancy pen I didn't need, but wanted. My first instinct was to buy it, to indulge, to enjoy the small thrill. But then I paused and asked myself a question that would change my financial life. If I invest this instead, what could it grow into a year from now, or 5 years from now? That simple mental exercise shifted something inside me. When you associate spending with opportunity cost, every purchase becomes a choice with long-term consequences. That coffee, that new gadget, that unnecessary impulse buy, it's not just a fleeting moment of pleasure. Each dollar you spend has the potential to multiply if invested wisely, or disappear if squandered carelessly. I began practicing this exercise daily, asking myself, is this item bringing me closer to my financial goals, or is it taking me further away? Over time, it became a discipline, a filter that guided every decision. This habit doesn't mean never enjoying your money. It means being conscious. I still indulge occasionally, but I weigh the cost in terms of potential growth. By thinking of each dollar as a soldier in your financial army, I began to allocate resources with intention, directing them toward opportunities that could compound over time, investments, education, businesses, rather than fleeting gratification. What I realized is that wealth is less about how much you earn and more about how consciously you manage your money. Daily, when faced with spending decisions, I mentally convert every potential expense into its future value. That mindset transforms ordinary financial choices into powerful wealth-building actions. Small daily decisions compound just like money compounds, and over years, the difference between impulsive spending and strategic investment is enormous. If you train your mind to see every dollar as a tool for growth, not just consumption, you develop the clarity, discipline, and foresight of a millionaire. Daily practice of this mental exercise creates a wealth-conscious mindset that guides your actions quietly but powerfully. The moment you internalize opportunity cost, you no longer spend blindly. Instead, you invest in your future at every turn. So, before you make your next purchase, ask yourself, what could this dollar become if I invested it instead? That one question, asked daily, will quietly transform your financial life and set you on a path to lasting wealth. I want you to imagine something for a moment. You have a dollar in your hand. Now, most people look at that dollar and think, in addition, they might spend it, maybe save it, or earn another dollar in exchange for more work. One-to-one, linear. That's the mindset of scarcity. The mindset that keeps people working hard but never breaking free. But what if, instead, you trained your mind to think in multiplication? What if that same dollar could become 10, 20, 100, not because you worked longer hours, but because it worked for you? That is the mindset of wealth. Early in my journey, I was working multiple jobs just to make ends meet. Every paycheck was a drop in the bucket, and I felt stuck in a never-ending loop. Then, I began to ask myself a question daily: how can this multiply? I didn't just mean money. I meant every resource, every skill, every opportunity. Could a skill I'm learning today generate income in several ways tomorrow? Could a business idea scale without my constant presence? Could an investment grow quietly while I sleep? This shift from addition to multiplication is subtle but transformative. It changes the way you see work, income, and opportunity. Suddenly, a side project isn't just a hobby, it's a seed that could become a tree. A small investment isn't just interest, it's a snowball that gathers momentum over time. The wealthy don't trade hours for dollars. They create systems, assets, and processes that expand without requiring direct effort at every step. That is leverage. I remember a young man I once mentored. He had a job, a steady paycheck, but he always worried about expenses. I asked him to look at his earnings differently. How can this multiply? He started small. He invested in a dividend-paying stock, then learned to rent out a spare room, and finally created an online course from his expertise. Each step alone seemed modest, but collectively, they created multiple streams of income that worked for him, not the other way around. Thinking in multiplication is a daily practice, a mental habit. Every financial choice, every skill you develop, every opportunity you encounter should be filtered through this lens. Ask yourself, will this grow, or will it just add another dollar? One multiplies, the other just accumulates. Multiplication turns small efforts into exponential results. So today, I challenge you. Start asking the question with every decision, every opportunity, every dollar. How can this multiply? Train your mind in this way daily, and you will quietly build systems of wealth that grow far beyond your direct effort, long before anyone even notices. Let me share something fundamental. Money is either a servant or a master. And most people never stop to realize which role it plays in their life. I've seen countless individuals earn good incomes yet remain broke because they handed over control of their finances to chance, to impulse, to the noise of the world. The difference between those who quietly build wealth and those who merely survive paycheck to paycheck is mastery over money itself. Every dollar must have a mission. Every dollar must be a soldier in your financial army. Early in my life, I had little understanding of this. I was just a young man chasing opportunities, sometimes recklessly spending what I earned. One week I would feel rich, the next I was scraping by. Then I began to track every penny, plan every expenditure, and prioritize savings and investments over consumption. Suddenly, money became a tool, not a source of stress. I remember keeping a simple ledger on a scrap of paper, writing down every incoming dollar and every outgoing cent. It seemed tedious at first, but that discipline revealed patterns, exposed waste, and highlighted opportunity. Budgeting is not about restriction, it's about direction. When you decide in advance where each dollar goes, you prevent it from being stolen by habit, impulse, or distractions. Savings are not just numbers. They are the fuel for future investments, the ammunition for building assets. And investing wisely is where your dollars begin to work independently, multiplying quietly while you focus on growing your skills and opportunities. Debt is the silent killer of financial progress. Every time you borrow without strategy, you surrender a soldier from your army. Every impulsive purchase steals power from your future. The wealthy understand that control is freedom, that financial discipline today compounds into opportunities tomorrow. I've met people with modest incomes who quietly accumulated wealth simply because they lived beneath their means, invested consistently, and avoided unnecessary debt. The principle is simple but profound. Allocate your resources with intention. Each dollar should have a purpose, some for living, some for growth, some for protection. Let them work together as a coordinated force. When you wake up one day and look at your financial statement, you'll realize that money is no longer chasing you. You are leading it, directing it, commanding it toward the life you envision. So, if you want real wealth, start today. Budget, save, invest, and give each dollar a mission. Build your financial army quietly, master it patiently, and let it carry you toward success with unstoppable precision. Let me tell you a truth I've witnessed countless times. The world doesn't reward the busy, it rewards the focused. And often, the difference between ordinary and extraordinary isn't talent, education, or luck. It's the willingness to put in effort when others are distracted, resting, or wasting time. There's a quiet power in working while others sleep, in showing up when the world is still quiet and the noise hasn't yet begun to pull you off course. I remember my own early days when I had very little. I would rise before the sun, not because I was naturally motivated, but because I had a vision of a better life, and I knew that time waits for no one. While my peers slept late, I read, studied, planned, and built skills that would eventually compound into opportunities. Each morning, those extra hours were like deposits in a bank account that would yield enormous returns years later. The principle is simple. Effort compounds, just like money. An extra hour a day focused on learning, building, or creating opportunities is not just an hour, it's the quiet architect of your future. While the world chases distractions, you are quietly preparing, sharpening your skills, nurturing your mindset, and positioning yourself for breakthroughs. It's not about working endlessly or punishing yourself. It's about strategic use of your time, recognizing that the early hours or the quiet moments are unmatched for clarity, creativity, and control. Those who dominate these hours gain momentum that carries through the day, while those who follow the crowd often find themselves reacting rather than leading. I've met people with moderate talent who achieved massive success simply because they outworked everyone in ways no one noticed. They didn't announce it. They didn't seek recognition. They quietly learned, planned, and executed while the world slept. And when the results became visible, the world was shocked. So, If you desire extraordinary results, begin with the hours when others are distracted. Invest in yourself, your skills, and your vision during these silent, focused periods. Because it's in these moments, away from the noise, away from excuses, that the seeds of wealth and success are planted. And when the world wakes up, it will be amazed at what you've quietly built. Let me share something I've seen again and again. The world often rewards what it notices. But real wealth and success come from what you create, not what you advertise. Far too many people chase recognition, approval, or applause, thinking that these are the signs of progress. And yet, the most extraordinary individuals I've encountered rarely shouted about their efforts. They focused on impact. They focused on creating value, on improving their lives, on building systems, skills, and habits that mattered. Recognition, respect, and financial reward followed naturally, almost as a byproduct of their consistent, deliberate work. When I began, I wasn't wealthy or famous. I didn't have an audience. I had ideas, ambition, and a commitment to act. Each day, I asked myself, how can I make today better than yesterday? How can I add value to someone's life, to a business, to an opportunity? I quietly applied myself, learned from mentors, experimented, and improved. Nobody noticed at first. The small victories seemed insignificant. But over time, those small, consistent actions accumulated into skills, wisdom, and opportunities that eventually transformed my life. The key is to measure success not by applause, but by progress. Focus on creating systems, producing results, and solving problems that matter. Focus on making your skills, your ideas, and your assets grow. The recognition you crave will follow. But if it becomes your main goal, you'll be distracted, reactive, and inconsistent. Think of money as a reflection of value delivered. Wealth is drawn to those who quietly work on meaningful things that improve the world or meet real needs. Your effort, your discipline, your attention to detail, when applied consistently, creates a gravity that draws opportunities, respect, and financial reward toward you. So, make impact your daily mission. Build, refine, and improve in silence. Serve, create, and invest in value. And when the world notices, it will be not because you demanded it, but because your results are undeniable. Let your life, your actions, and your work speak louder than words. Recognition is temporary, but impact is permanent, and through impact comes true wealth. When it comes to building wealth and success, one of the most overlooked truths is that not all tasks are created equal. Most people spend their days reacting to whatever lands on their desk or phone, believing that being busy equals being productive. But I've learned and seen in the lives of countless successful people that busy work rarely creates lasting wealth. True financial progress comes from identifying and focusing on high-leverage activities, the few actions that generate the greatest return on your time, energy, and resources. These are the tasks that move the needle, the activities that compound over time and build both skills and capital. Early in my own journey, I struggled with this. I was eager, willing to do everything I could. I worked long hours, but much of it was scattered effort, low-value meetings, endless errands, and tasks that produced little or no long-term gain. I was tired at the end of the day, yet my bank account and my personal growth did not reflect the hours I invested. That's when I learned the power of leverage. I began asking myself a simple but powerful question. Which activities today will have the greatest impact on my future. I realized that some work, even if small or unseen, had far more influence on my results than the tasks that seemed urgent in the moment. High leverage activities are often uncomfortable. They require discipline, focus, and delayed gratification. Writing a detailed plan for an investment, learning a new skill, reaching out to a potential client with a thoughtful proposal, or creating a system that automates income, all of these are high leverage actions. They may not offer instant satisfaction, but they multiply your results over time. In contrast, responding to trivial emails, attending unnecessary meetings, or chasing minor tasks may make you feel busy, but they rarely move you closer to your goals. The beauty of focusing on high leverage activities is that it allows you to work smarter, not just harder. It teaches you to prioritize your time and energy. Every decision, every hour becomes an investment in your future self. The key is to cultivate awareness of where your efforts truly create value, then ruthlessly protect that time. Many people sabotage themselves by giving attention to what is urgent rather than what is important. The truth is, most wealth is built quietly, behind the scenes, by people who consistently channel their energy toward high-value tasks while the world is distracted by noise. I remember advising young entrepreneurs that they should dedicate a portion of their day exclusively to high-leverage work. Even 2 hours of focused, high-impact activity can surpass an entire day spent on low-value busyness. Over time, these focused efforts compound into expertise, influence, and financial results that ordinary effort could never produce. The principle is simple. Find what matters most, focus, and execute consistently. When you do, you're not just working, you're multiplying your impact, your skills, and ultimately, your wealth. Prioritize what moves you forward. Work on what creates lasting results. Let the low-value tasks fade into the background and watch as your focused actions produce compounding success that others will notice long before they understand it. Time is the most precious asset you will ever own, yet so many of us treat it carelessly. We fill our days with noise, distractions, and reactive tasks, thinking that being busy is the same as being productive. But the truth is that time, once spent, can never be reclaimed, and every moment is an opportunity to invest in your future wealth. Discipline with time is the foundation of financial and personal success. Just as you would guard your money from reckless spending, you must protect your hours, minutes, and energy from being wasted on things that do not serve your long-term goals. Early in my journey, I realized that my days were slipping through my fingers. I was working hard, yet my results were inconsistent. I observed people who were creating real success, and a pattern emerged. They treated their time as deliberately as they treated their finances. They blocked off hours for focused learning, creation, and strategic action. They protected these periods fiercely, ensuring nothing trivial could interrupt their momentum. I began to adopt the same approach, and over time, I understood that discipline with time multiplies every other effort. Maintaining discipline with time means creating structured periods for high-value work. It is not enough to work long hours. You must work with focus and intention. Block the distractions, silence notifications, and dedicate uninterrupted time to learning new skills, planning investments, building assets, or generating ideas. Even small, consistent blocks, 30 minutes to an hour each day, can compound into significant growth over months and years. I remember spending early mornings reading financial reports, studying market trends, and drafting plans for investments while others were sleeping or scrolling aimlessly on their phones. Those seemingly small, quiet hours laid the foundation for decisions and opportunities that multiplied into real wealth later. Time discipline also extends to how you structure the rest of your day. Meetings, social interactions, and minor tasks should not dominate your schedule unless they directly support your goals. Learn to say no to the trivial and yes to the essential. Each decision about how you spend your hours is a vote for the life you wish to create. When you guard your time as fiercely as you guard your money, you develop the habit of making every moment productive. The compounding effect of disciplined time cannot be overstated. Hours invested in learning, reflection, and creation today become skills, knowledge, and opportunities tomorrow. They form a reservoir of value that allows you to act decisively, think strategically, and seize moments others overlook. It is not dramatic gestures, but consistent, focused efforts that accumulate into extraordinary results. Treat your time like money. Invest it wisely, protect it from waste, and use it intentionally. Over months and years, the disciplined allocation of your hours will transform not only your wealth, but your confidence, your mastery, and the life you are capable of creating. Time is a currency that buys results, and how you spend it determines everything. One of the quietest but most powerful principles of building lasting wealth is the practice of minimizing lifestyle inflation. It's a subtle trap many people fall into without even realizing it. As income increases, expenses rise at the same pace, or sometimes faster. A raise at work, a profitable investment, or a successful side venture can be a blessing, but if you allow your lifestyle to expand unchecked, you remain stuck in the cycle of working for money rather than letting money work for you. True wealth is created when your income grows faster than your lifestyle, allowing you to save, invest, and compound your resources quietly over time. Early in my life, I observed people who seemed to earn plenty yet never seemed to get ahead. They purchased bigger houses, fancier cars, and more gadgets with every increase in income. Their lifestyle expanded to match their earnings, leaving little room for real financial growth.